Hello everyone, hi Izzie. Welcome back to Faith for Dummies. How are you today?
Hi Rob, I'm good thanks, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thanks. Just had a cup of tea, so all good.
Always a good day. Actually, do you know what? This morning was sad because I went to make a coffee and I have one of those milk frother machine things that I use when I'm feeling fancy.
Yeah.
And I poured the milk in and then I left it and I came back and I poured it into my mug and it was still cold because the machine was broken. So then I got very angry. But I think
Wow.
I fixed it.
That's good. That sounds like a dummy moment without even asking for one.
I'm not even sure if it was dumb. It was just really annoying.
Wait, so did you forget to do it or was it broken?
No, it was just broken.
Oh, I see. I thought you forgot. You just poured cold milk in.
Yeah, no. It was
What?
not my fault.
What are we doing today, Izzie?
Today we are talking to my friend Dan James from Leicester, and we're answering the question, can I love Jesus and be depressed? Or something of that. I don't know what we've actually called it.
I think I've started with it. Depressed, blessed but depressed or something like that because I thought it was cool.
Love it. I'm going to get him a t-shirt with that on.
If we do one on stress, we could do blessed but stressed.
Absolutely. It was a really, really nice conversation. I've known Dan for like a decade and he just speaks really helpfully about mental health stuff and faith stuff. He's a pastor, so he knows Jesus really well. He knows the Bible really well, but he also knows mental health struggles really well and he holds them together really nicely. So it was a pleasure to talk to him and I'm hoping it'll be a helpful episode.
Yeah, there's a footballer out there called Dan James. I thought it was him at first, but it's not.
There is. Though I know two Dan Jameses, a bit confusing.
Oh. Okay, cool. Well, if that's everything, we will hand over to Izzie and Dan.
Great. Hello, Dan James. Welcome to Faith for Dummies. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. Could you tell us who you are and what you do and those kinds of things?
Yeah, so my name's Dan. I'm married to Jamie. We've got a 10-year-old daughter called Aoife. And I am pastor of a small, newish church plant in a council estate in the south of Leicester.
Great. What is your number one favourite thing about your job?
Oh, I get to tell people about Jesus who don't know, a lot of the time, people who don't know about him and don't know much about him. It's great.
That's a good answer for a pastor, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of default. I have to say that.
Nice.
As you said, the holidays.
Yeah, the pay and the holidays, right? That's the best part. Great. So you are on Faith for Dummies with us this week. So do you have any dummy moments to share, either from life or just from the week?
I can share one from the week just gone. So there's a lady in our church who's recently been taken into hospital. And so I wanted to go and visit her. And another lady from church said, I'll come with you. I was like, great, I'll pick you up at this time on this day. Well, I'll do enough time. We can then go pick our children up from school afterwards. Perfect. It'll work out brilliantly. So I pick up my friend and we're all excited. We drive down to the hospital. We park. We find a free parking spot, which is a dream. We head in, say, right, we'll go find this ward. We go to the reception desk, ask where it is. Turns out we've gone to the wrong hospital. So, yeah, that was a frustrating moment of like, yeah, we've made it. We're going to have everything just right. And it was very wrong. And there wouldn't have been time to go and visit the right hospital. So we went to see her the next day instead.
That is really sad. That is a great dummy moment. I don't think I can top that this week, actually. It's the kind of thing I would do, to be fair. Oh, cool. So, thank you so much for joining us. To move from a very light to very deep conversation straight away, we have invited you on to ask you the question, can I love Jesus and have depression? Or whatever it is we've called this episode, something like that. And I thought you would be a great person to talk to because not only are you a friend of mine, you're a great Christian, you love Jesus, as you said, you're a pastor and you love telling people about Jesus, but you have also had depression for, many years, I think, as much as I know you. So we were just wondering if we could chat today about that, if that's all right with you.
I'd love to. I'm very passionate about chatting about it. There is a big, or at least there was when I was growing up. I'm 40-something. And so when I was growing up, there was a bit of a stigma about mental health and faith. And I probably had a bit of that myself. And so part of my passion as an older man has been to want to sort of break down some of those stigmas and talk about mental health and faith and following Jesus and serving Jesus even while having mental health problems.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So first question, how long have you been a Christian and how long have you lived with depression?
So I grew up, I am a pastor's kid, which is the worst sort of kid. And it meant that I mean, we're terrible. Like, because you know it all, and so when does it make a difference? When does it become real for me? Was a real challenge. I could have told you the gospel brilliantly from a very young age and didn't believe it at all. And I can't specifically name a moment where I became a Christian. I know the point that I wasn't, and I know a point where I could definitely say I was, and then somewhere in between is when God convicted me of sin, showed me Jesus Christ, and called me to follow him. I think some old dead white guy said it's that kind of Christian experience of, it's like going for a walk at night time and then realizing it's daytime, but not being able to tell you when the change happened. And I think that would describe. Yeah, that's a nice way to describe that. That's how I would describe my coming to faith. But that would have been around between the ages of 14 and 16 was when I kind of felt a conviction that I was genuinely saved.
Yeah.
And then I started really struggling with depression from about the age of 16. So around exactly the same time. Yeah, I just felt myself hating myself more and more and more, and growing dislike and kind of an anger very much aimed at me. So yeah.
Okay. How do you think living with depression as a kind of teenager and then like early adulthood, how do you think that affected your life and your friendships and maybe your faith as well?
I think because I didn't deal with it in a healthy way, there are lots of elements to my life that were, from an external perspective, without trusting in a sovereign God, that I would say were negatively impacted. So I didn't finish university because my mental health was so bad. My relationship with God, because I was wrestling with whether you can be a Christian and have depression, and like how can God love me when I hate me? How can I claim to be following Jesus when I don't have joy, or what I thought was joy? Wrestling with all those things meant that I didn't grow spiritually in the way you might want somebody of that age to be growing. I didn't invest in university and CU and mission and church perhaps quite as much as I should have. And I hate the word should because that's just guilt from the past. But I think from an external view, you could look at it and see there were lots of negatives that happened. But equally, from a bit more of a hindsight, I'm sure there's many years yet to come to work some stuff out. God was doing an awful lot of stuff in me at that time that was to prepare me for situations in the future, that was shaping me and moulding me. And one of the things that I'm confident that God was doing in that was equipping me to be able to chat with other people about it in the future without being fazed by it, freaked out by it, and having a certain level of empathy that I have now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that as well. And I think you need a level of honesty and the ability to hear people say really difficult stuff, don't you, to be able to kind of chat and advise somebody in those kind of thoughts and feelings. Was there anything, as you were talking then I was just thinking, was there anything particularly helpful or unhelpful that either you read or that people said? So because you said when you were growing up there wasn't a great stigma around mental health and in the church, and I mean that's still been true recently in some churches. I think in churches I've been in, there's been discussions after sermons about, did someone just tell me that if I'm sad then I don't love Jesus, or was that how I misconstrued what they said, or what does the Bible say on that? And yeah, so what was kind of helpful and unhelpful for you?
One of the things that the church didn't do, and Christians I knew didn't do when I was depressed, was they didn't challenge sin when I was using that as a coping mechanism. I think people who may have suspected I was doing stupid things that were blatantly sinful never challenged me on it outwardly. And in fact, the only time anybody did challenge me out on it and call me out on something was my non-Christian mate. But I wonder if people perhaps thought they had to tread gently when it came to challenging me, in case the kind of fragility I felt with mental health meant that I'd crumble or I would react angrily or whatever. And I mean, who knows? I may well have crumbled and reacted angrily, but that's not on them. That would have been on me. And I think as Christians, we're still called, so for me, it was reckless spending of money. I was stupidly spending money and snogging as many girls as I could, basically, without being too blunt on it, and making really stupid decisions as a result of that. And yeah, I think while, you can look and trace and look at how some of those dangerous behaviours are sometimes symptoms of mental health problems and depression particularly, that doesn't excuse them. And I think as Christians we're still called to call out sin, and I'm thankful. I'm still really good friends with my non-Christian mate who called me out, and I'm really thankful for people who did challenge me on stuff at points. So that'd be unhelpful, is kind of letting you get away with sin because you're being a bit too soft. And that may be temperament wise with me. I quite like a nice firm slap rather than a gentle arm around the shoulder, but
I am not like that.
Exactly, different folks for different strokes, but there could have been a way of doing it. I was chatting with one of the few people I'm still in touch with from university a little while ago, talking about this, and she said, "Yeah, do you remember that time you said you couldn't afford to come on the CU weekend away? So I paid for you, and then that afternoon you came back in with a load of CDs you just bought." Like just selfish, kind of dangerous spending of money, getting away. That's a call me out situation, not a let him get away with it situation, which I think she did, to be fair. But so that's what was unhelpful. And then I think what was really helpful for me particularly was getting to grips with some bits of the Bible where depression is really clearly presented and what I felt was being really clearly presented. So some of the Psalms, Psalm 13 in particular, it's a really default one to go to. And so I like it. It's really good. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? And ends with, "Yeah, I will trust in your faithful love." And I love that psalm, but I always found the ending a little bit too trite. I've kind of a nice twee happy ending, especially when I was in the thick of it. I found a bit hard. And then I found Psalm 88. And if anybody listening to this is counselling somebody going through depression or is experiencing depressive tendencies, or, to be honest, any situation in life that is causing you to feel rubbish, read Psalm 88, because in it you see that misery can become worship when you pour it out to God. It is such a bleak psalm, and it doesn't end with any hope. It ends with darkness, and it's in the Bible, and Jesus would have sung it. And so, therefore, when we feel like that, we can talk like that. And that makes it kind of, there's a liberation to it. And at points in it, he's almost like grumpy and sarcastic with God. And God doesn't care. Like, I think the phrase that I stole when I preached on this psalm was, God's got a big enough chest for us to beat against. Yeah, no matter how bleak or blunt you want to talk, Psalm 88 has done it. For me, the fact that it comes from a psalm is even better, because a lot of people say a lot of stupid things about God a lot of the time, trying to be nice, trying to be helpful. But if someone says, "Oh, let's look at Psalm 88," look what you can say to God. It's better to have an example that Jesus read and sang and is put in God's forever eternal word for us.
Yeah.
I think there's a real liberation with that as well. Because people said lots of really good and helpful things to me, but I just went, "You're just saying that."
There's a lot of lamenting, I think, we're not very good at lamenting as Christians. And even though there is lament in the Bible, we're not very good at singing sad songs or saying sad prayers, and we often want to fix stuff. And so we're like, we either try and fix it for somebody, or we kind of go, "Well, have you talked to God about it? And have you considered that, all these good things that you're thankful for from God?" And yeah, I really hated people being like, "Have you tried gratitude instead of depression?
Have you tried not being sad?
Have you just tried looking at it in a different way?"
I think so. Yeah. So that was helpful. And then another thing that was really helpful to me was when it all feels a bit pointless and like, okay, fine, I can accept I'm suffering. I don't like it. I don't get it. I don't know why. And then you read the start, I think it's 2 Corinthians. Yeah, where the start of 2 Corinthians chapter 1, where the Apostle Paul is just sharing with them how bleak he's felt. So verse 9, "Indeed, we felt we'd received the sentence of death. Like we were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired of life itself." That's the Apostle Paul saying that's okay. But just before that, he says in verse 3, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. He's the Father of all compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." And just being aware that any experience I was going through, particularly with mental health or any experiences in life, are not pointless. They are used, if nothing else, to help us be able to comfort others going through similar stuff in the future. That was a big help in those moments of, okay, fine, but I don't like it.
Yes.
There's got a purpose in that.
What would you say to someone who's asked the question, okay, you can be a Christian and have depression, but how do you worship when you're depressed? What does that look like? So you kind of touched on that with the psalm.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best example I've got is, or at least one of the examples, is that you worship by pouring it to God. Because when you do Psalm 88 and you turn it out to God, it's kind of telling yourself and it's telling God and it's telling the world around you that you believe God when he says, "Cast all your burdens on me because I care about you." That's in 1 Peter. Like if nothing else, you're saying, okay, all I can do is complain. But if I'm going to complain, I'm going to take it to the manager. And I'm going to give it to the person who should have it and who says he wants to hear it. So I'm going to take him at his word. And therefore, when you do that, you can be blunt. You can be, sarcastic with God. You can be angry with him because it's to him. It's not to people around you. Like I think of In the Old Testament, you got the people wandering around the desert and they grumble. And we don't want to be grumblers, but what is grumbling? Well, part of that is just whinging to other people.
Yeah.
It's just rather than taking it to God. And it may be that there are people here who genuinely feel like, I cannot talk to God right now. That feels like the hardest thing to do. We'll get somebody in your life who will do it for you on your behalf. Who'll take your words to God for you. I had a really close friend who did that for me over the phone a couple of times when I was really struggling, who, knew I just couldn't pray there when I was as low as I was, and who said, I know you can't, so I'm going to do it for you. And I think doing whatever you can to turn your eyes Godward, as hard as that is one way you can worship God, because it shows you're taking God at his word when he says he cares about you and he's given you a church and other Christians around you to walk this race with you. Like, growing as a Christian is not a solo sport. It's a team sport.
Yeah. How would you say now that your mental health in general and your faith, your love for Jesus, how do they fit together? And maybe that for you or for other people listening might include like medication or counselling and stuff. Like how do you fit all that together?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worth being really clear in today's culture that I do not think medication is demonic or evil or something at all. I think medication, especially for mental health issue, is a great gift from God. Let's not be afraid of it. Like, I also have asthma, so I have to take medication every single day for asthma. Does that make me weaker spiritually? I don't think so. I've often described my mental health as a bit like spiritual asthma. Sometimes I need a few more inhalers, and sometimes it's fine. So, I want to be really clear. If you are struggling with mental health challenges, particularly depression and depressive tendencies, don't be afraid of medical help and counselling. I think both medical help and counselling are two of the best things. So I think that they are good gifts from God given to us to help us live and serve him however we can in the world he's put us in with the situation he's called us to endure. So that's part of it. It's absolutely right to go on mental health medication. I've been off mental health medication for just over 11 years, which never thought possible, particularly in my early 20s. I thought there just wasn't, I couldn't foresee a time when that would happen. But that means I've got to be hotter on being aware of my triggers or when I'm starting to go downhill and do things that help the darkness grow. And part of the way I stop the darkness growing is by shining a light on it and talking to other people and have people I go, look, here's where my head's heading at. Just telling you in itself, I'm confident will be a helpful handbrake, but it might not be. So just to be aware and get people praying for me, but also people who I know are not going to then treat me with kid gloves or, over patronise me with it or ignore me and run away scared. Just knowing good friends and going, this is a struggle. Can you pray for me on that? Just be aware of that. And I think the big thing that I really learned as a result of all my wrestling in my late 20s, my early 20s in particular, is that what I feel is very real, and I don't want to downplay that, but what it doesn't change is truth. So the truth is, Jesus died for me. He rose again from the dead in order to invite me and share his spirit to call me to follow him for the rest of my life. And he's paid an awfully great price to win me, so he's never going to lose me. No matter how I feel, that doesn't change. And that has been a really helpful kind of line in the sand I've been able to draw of, okay, my feelings don't change truth. They might affect how I'm able to interact with the truth, but the truth remains the truth, regardless of how I feel.
Yeah,
So
especially in today's culture, I think that's really important, isn't it? Like, the truth is quite a flexible thing in society at the moment, because what you want to believe could be your truth, right? And actually, as a Christian, kind of standing on God's word as truth and what he's said is truth. Actually, that could be really helpful when your brain is telling you a lot of lies.
Yeah, and like the devil is the father of lies, right? And a depression might make it easier for those lies to creep in. And he loves to take advantage of that. But also, therefore, it glorifies God more when we go, okay, you're lying to me. Here's the truth. I'm going to cling to that rather than what you say. So, yeah, I think that's kind of been a really helpful line in the sand for me to go, nope, that's it. I am saved, regardless. And therefore, there's implications and there's applications to that truth that do determine how I react to depression. So before getting married, snogging lots of different people is not a helpful thing to do. That's not a good thing to do.
It's not good after you get married either.
Apparently not. So Jamie's told me since we got married. But like spending dangerously on money, I've got to be really careful. I still stand firm on sin and I still fight sin. I'm not excusing it. I don't. So, for example, a lot of people with mental health will then go into alcohol. because it's really easy to numb yourself a little bit with it. Now, you can enjoy alcohol well, but the Bible's really clear, don't get drunk. So there are kind of lines in the sand that mean there are applications for that, but that also doesn't mean I can't enjoy a nice glass of wine to help me just relax of an evening. God's given us that great gift. Obviously, if you struggle with alcoholism, don't do that. But yeah, I think being aware that the truth is the truth, how I interact with that is going to change, is going to vary, is going to go up and down. That doesn't determine whether I'm a child of God or not, because God says I am. The end.
Yeah.
I'm adopted. You can't undo it now.
I was going to say that my final question for you was going to be to ask for one piece of advice, but I think you've actually just given about 10 different bits of advice that were brilliant. But do you have one final encouragement? If a young person came to you and told you that they were struggling with depression and in the kind of same way that you were as a teenager, what would be your one encouragement of maybe how God sees them? Or so not so much advice, but just kind of godly encouragement or wisdom for them?
I think really wrestle with, and I had to do this just 7 years ago. I had a real wrestle with this. My pastor I was working for, I was an assistant pastor in a church, and the guy I was working for kept pointing me to this, and I couldn't accept it for ages. And it is when Jesus is baptized. I'm just trying to find it exactly where it is. Yeah, when Jesus is baptized, I'm going to read the one in Mark 1 here, where a voice from heaven says, "You are my son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased." And my boss at the time was saying, "And that is what God says about you, Dan." There was a physical recoiling. No, he can't. He's largely disappointed in me. He's tolerant of me being around, but he's mostly just disappointed by me. And I think really wrestling with that and getting to grips with the fact that because I am now in Christ, that's the language that the New Testament uses far more than as a Christian or anything like that. It's in Christ. What God says about Jesus, he now says about me, because when he looks at me, he sees Jesus' perfection. And having to wrestle with that was really, really helpful wrestling. There's loads of books I could point people to that help do that, but just realising that when God looks at me, he doesn't see a depressive. He doesn't see somebody who failed a lot. He doesn't see somebody who could or should have done better in different areas. He says, "You are my son whom I love. With you I'm well pleased." And that is a big wrestle to get to, but I would encourage somebody experiencing depression to wrestle with that and what that really means for them, because that changes everything. If that is what God is genuinely saying about you, that changes everything. That changes how you can face anything, because your identity as a Christian is not as a depressive. It's as a Christian. You are in Christ. You're a Christian who has depression. I'm a Christian who is Welsh. It's the same thing. They're an aspect of me. They're not who I am. Who I am is in Christ, and God is well pleased with me because he's well pleased with Jesus. And so that means when I'm struggling, God is well pleased with me. When I have good days, God is well pleased with me. And that's quite liberating. But it does take some work to get through it.
Yeah. It's not an overnight thing.
And there are days I still go, fine. And so I started doing what Francis Chan mentioned he did in a podcast I listened to recently, where he says he's praying every day, "God, show me your holiness and show me how loved I am."
That's a good prayer.
I don't think you can go too far wrong if you do that and look for that in his word.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Dan.
You're very welcome.
Thanks so much, Izzie and Dan. What a great interview. That was really, really good. Thanks so much. Izzie, any initial thoughts?
Oh man, I just thought it's just helpful, isn't it? I think it's really easy to think when we're struggling that God isn't close or God doesn't care or that there's something wrong with us. And actually, I think Dan really just shows that feeling of that's not true. Like God cares and he's there and he's listening and we can talk to him about anything. But actually also really loved his honesty of saying, I don't feel like that. When he was talking about how God looks at us and says that he's pleased with us, and Dan, who's known Jesus for years and years, is like, I don't always think that. I don't always believe that. I think that honesty is just refreshing, and hopefully it was helpful for you guys as well. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. That is the second time I think Psalm 88 has come up in these episodes, so maybe I should go away and actually read it. But yeah, I thought it was really great, really, really great. I really just generally enjoyed it. I think as someone who struggled with mental health in the past, I thought it was really good, a way of talking about it openly and honestly. And I think there definitely was quite a big taboo, especially in Christian circles, about it. And maybe that's being broken a bit, being a bit more talked about. But still not quite enough. And I think Dan's really helped us out and really hopefully helping those listeners out in doing that bit more. So yeah, I really thought it was really good. Thanks so much, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I just remembered once Dan and his friend, they made, you know how on the internet you always see like Christian pages where they have like a beautiful sunset and then they have like beautiful words from the Bible, like really, inspirational, encouraging quotes.
Yeah.
They made, I think it was Psalm 88 with like pictures of like puppies and sunsets and stuff, but it was like really depressing words from Psalm 88. So if I can find those, I'll get his permission to put them on Instagram because they were very funny.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I look forward to that. Okay, cool. And our challenge for the week is just to check in with a Christian friend and really ask them how they're doing, especially one that you think might be having a bit of a hard time, just to kind of break the stigma about mental health. And it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to be okay, and just have those good friendships. And that's our challenge for the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week. Bye, Izzie. Bye, everyone.